thank you for joining us for Primetime Office Hours week number 5. Once again, hosted inside our Rome virtual office auditorium. My name's Ben, and I'm going to be I am head of customer experience at Foundation, and I'm going to be your host for today's session. If you are joining us live, thank you for those giving us the emoji waves to confirm everything's working okay. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from today. Pleasure to see you all back with us. Quick bit of housekeeping before we kick things off. Just like every other week, these sessions are recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel. The links for that will all be shared with you by email later this week. So if you are watching this back on YouTube, hello and thank you for catching up. If you join us live, feel free to ask your questions as we go along. As always, just tap the ask a question button. Your mic will go live. Just make sure that you're not double muted locally as well. Try and keep it to one question at a time, and once you have asked your question, please vacate the question area because it is a one in, one out, and if one person sits there and hogs the mic, nobody else is able to ask the question, so please do remember to step back down once you've asked your question. If you've got your Passport Prime with you, as always, get it out now. Today is another hands-on session, so having the device in front of you is going to make this a lot more valuable. But as always, if you are waiting on yours or catching up after the fact, that is fine. You'll be able to follow along with everything when your device arrives. So a quick recap of where we are in the series. Our last session was covering the security keys and 2FA apps. We walked through how Passport Prime handles your TOTP codes, those 6 digits, as well as your FIDO hardware-based security keys, all kept fully offline and backed up via those magic backups. If you missed it, don't forget, it's there on YouTube for you to catch up on. And if you have any follow-up questions, drop them in the YouTube comments or hop into our community forum, which is at community.foundation.xyz. And myself or a member of the team will be happy to take any questions there as well. Today marks week number 5, and we're going to be covering the Vault and the Files apps. 2 apps that look pretty different on the surface, but they share the same idea. Passport Prime is your private offline storage for the things that matter most to you. And next week will be the final week of this series where we're going to cover off a bit of a wrap-up session, what's coming next for Passport Prime, and I'm also very excited to be showing you some of the stuff that myself as a non-developer has been able to put together with the help of some AI coding tools. So I'm excited to do some live demos of that as well. So what are we covering today? We've got 5 main blocks of content on the menu. First, we're going to cover off a bit of theory. As always, there's a brief amount of slides. I'm going to be covering off the Vault app, which is where things get pretty interesting. The Vault uses the Bitcoin standard BIP85 to enable you to drive an unlimited number of child seeds from your Passport Prime master key, so that a single magic backup can secure dozens of wallets, Nostr accounts and passwords. I'm going to dive into what all of those are later. Then we're going to cover off the Files app, and I'm going to walk through the 3 different storage areas, including the very exciting airlock, which is the highlight of the Files app. Then we're going to have a really important quick slide on backups, because the story is slightly different for these 2 apps and it's important that you know the difference. And then, as I said, we're going to do a live demo of both apps on a real device. As always, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end as well. But feel free, as I said, to hop up if you feel you see a natural break in the presentation, or just put your hand up and I'll be happy to take any questions as we go along. If this is your first session that you've been able to catch live, don't forget everything's on YouTube. I know I've said that multiple times, but there's a wealth of content in the previous 4 weeks, which is worth catching up on if you've missed any of these shows. All right, so the Vault app. The Vault app is where Passport Prime generates and stores your secondary secrets. This includes Bitcoin seeds, Nostr private keys, and passwords. The reason that the Vault exists, and the reason that I think it's such a great idea, is that all of these secondary keys or secrets are derived from your master key in what we call a deterministic way. What this means is that your single magic backup that gets created as part of every traditional onboarding for Passport Prime backs up all of those additional things automatically and all at once. So there's no separate seed phrases for all of your additional wallets, no separate backups for your Nostr keys if you're a Nostr user. One backup, one set of key cards means that you can recover everything. And crucially, it means you can recover everything outside of Prime as well. So there's kind of like a two-pronged approach here. We're also going to cover off some sort of stuff, what's coming up in future firmware updates, because these apps, as cool as they are not, in our opinion, fully feature complete at the time of recording, which for the record is 12th of May 2026. So the Vault app currently doesn't allow you to import existing seeds or existing Nostr keys, but you will be able to do that very soon from the next firmware update. So that means that you don't have to upheave all of your existing accounts and Bitcoin seeds just to be able to leverage this tool. The Vault app will enable you to import them as well, which is going to be a pretty powerful tool. So a quick technical detour on the underpinnings of the Vault app, because this is the part that kind of can change how you think about Bitcoin self-custody, especially if you are the colloquial term is Uncle Jim, which I'm sure will resonate with some of you in the audience. But basically, if you're the Bitcoin guy or girl in the friend and family group, you're probably in a position where you may be helping people store their existing seeds, which can become quite a burden. Well, Passport Prime makes that very easy for you. So I mentioned BIP 85. BIPs are kind of, they stand for Bitcoin Improvement Proposals, and they're basically loose standards that the Bitcoin industry kind of gravitates towards. Not always, just because a BIP is kind of published doesn't necessarily mean it becomes widely adopted. However, BIP 85 is one of those, thankfully. So BIP 85 is a Bitcoin standard that lets you derive, again, what are colloquially termed child seeds from a parent or a master seed or key. The parent in our case and in our ecosystem is what we call the Passport Prime master key. So that's what gets backed up in that 2 of 3 Shamir setup that we spoke about in previous weeks. One part on a keycard number 1, one part on keycard number 2, and then the third part that gets stored over on Envoy. If you are a manual user, then for you that would be just those 3 keycards. And from that one master key, Passport Prime can generate hundreds of separate 12 or 24 word Bitcoin seeds, each completely independent of them others. They are their own Bitcoin seeds in their own right. They are just using the initial kind of master key secret that your Prime is initially concerned about to what we call deterministically generate those in a standardized way. As I said, each child seed is a full and real Bitcoin seed compatible with the rest of the industry. Again, those more technical in the audience will recognize the term BIP 39, which is another Bitcoin standard, which is essentially the Bitcoin seed standard that all Bitcoin wallets, well, 99% of them, operate by. So if you can import or generate a seed, there's a very, very, very high likelihood that it is a standard BIP 39 seed, which is what Passport Prime generates within the Vault app. You can pop any of those child seeds into a mobile wallet like Blue Wallet. I'm going to show you how to do that later. Or other examples would include Nunchuk, Sparrow on the desktop, or any other hardware wallet as well. They all operate on that same standard, and that's the beautiful part of all of this. So, but here's the part that matters. If anybody holding one of those child seeds loses it, Prime can rederive it and re-show it to them and reshare it with them in a deterministic way from that same master using the same index. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So what that means is essentially you can have one backup to basically back up or generate an infinite number of additional sub wallets. This same standard applies to Nostr keys as well. So you can generate a Nostr private key on your Passport Prime, and that's not NSEC is what it's called within the Nostr ecosystem, is again derived from that master key in a deterministic way. So if you're a user of, I don't know, Amethyst or Primal on your phone and you lose your phone, Passport Prime is able to rederive that secret for you. Your Nostr identity remains intact. One backup, hundreds of wallets and identities. Very, very cool. To try and demonstrate this in more of a visual way, I've quickly kind of put together this sort of tree structure diagram that kind of demonstrates it a little bit. So you've got the orange bit at the top, your Passport Prime master key, which is the keys to your, I guess, Passport Prime kingdom. And then from that, you can have an almost infinite tree structure underneath, where you can have, index 0, which is where the count starts from, will give you one seed. Index 1 will give you a completely different seed, and so on. Hundreds of indexes, hundreds of independent seeds, and Nostr keys work in exactly the same way. It's simply just a different derivation type. So there's 4 things worth knowing, because when we're talking about BIP85 and how this works. The first one, each child key or secret. I'm going to use secret because we're talking about Bitcoin seeds, passwords, and Nostr keys here, independent, like all together. It's up to you what you derive at when you kind of choose to generate a new secret. So I'll just use the term secret moving forward. Each secret is cryptographically independent from the rest, and specifically from the master key itself. So if you generate a child seed for your mom's Envoy wallet and you hand her the 12 words, those words tell nobody anything about where it came from. It gives no inclination that it's derived from a Passport Prime master key. The same goes for Nostr or any other children as well. These are completely independent entities, and it's kind of like a one-way derivation function. So if you generate index number 2 for your mom's Envoy wallet and she loses that and it falls into an attacker's hands, the only thing at risk is the funds within that specific wallet controlled by that specific seed. It doesn't put anything else at risk. Number 2, the master key cannot be reverse engineered from the child. So the math is, again, as I said, a one-way function. So given the master key, you can derive any child seed. But given a child, you cannot go back up the tree to get to the master. So even if a child seed gets leaked, your keycards and your other child secrets are completely safe. Number 3, and this is the crucial part, the same input gives exactly the same output every single time. That's what we call the deterministic element of what we're talking about. So index 0 from your Passport Prime master key will always produce the same 12-word seed. That's what we call the deterministic kind of input in this context. And it's also the reason that rederivation works in any other compatible BIP85 wallet. And thankfully, there are plenty of them. So a year from now, if your Passport Prime is dead, you've got a new one, and you're restoring from KeyCards, and tapping the same labeled item gives you the exact same seed words as you had before. And the 4th and final one, again, just to remind you, it is a real BIP39 seed word at the end of the day. The words that Passport Prime hand out are the same kind of Bitcoin seed that any other Bitcoin wallet understands. Again, Blue Wallet, Sparrow, Nunchuk, they all will accept these seed words. They are a universal standard. To them, it's just a 12 or 24 standard word seed. So practically, if you take anything from this, the security of every child seed and the recoverability of every one of them comes down to the security of one thing. The master key, which in the Passport Prime case is split across those 2 keycards plus a third part on Envoy. Treat those well and back them up responsibly. Again, if you don't know what I mean here, go back to session number 2 where we talked about that. And the rest of the story kind of just works. So a quick deep dive on the vault items. I've talked about most of them. I just want to clarify. When you tap add a new item in the vault, again, I'm going to show you this very shortly. Passport Prime will just ask you what kind of item you want to add. Today, there are 4 options. A 12-word Bitcoin seed, a 24-word Bitcoin seed, a password. Right now, there are some limitations of the password, which I'm going to mention shortly, and a Nostr key. Advanced users, when they go through this create new item, can manually override the index number, because by default, Passport Prime will just give you the next unused one in the list. It will start at 0, then go to 1, then go to 2, etc., etc. However, if you want to be a little bit reckless or super advanced and go and choose index number 3579, go for it. You can do that, and I'll show you how shortly. So some use cases. This is where it gets really exciting, and this is why I think this is so powerful. A few of the things that people are doing with this once they've had Prime for a while. The first one and the most obvious one is being able to bail out family members. So if you're the Bitcoiner of the family or friendship group, picture this. Your mom asks you for help setting up a Bitcoin wallet. The old school answer is you help her generate a new one in whichever hardware wallet or mobile application she's using. She writes down that 12-word seed, and you both pray that she puts it somewhere safe and looks after it. 6 months later, she's lost it, or she didn't even write it down in the first place. She's deposited a load of funds in there, and then she loses her phone. Game over. Well, the new answer with Passport Prime and the Vault app is that you upfront would generate a child seed for her on Passport Prime. She would then import that into wherever she wants, again, mobile wallet, desktop wallet, hardware wallet, and then you both go about your day. 6 months later, she loses the backup. You can just pull out your Prime, rederive that seed word for her, as long as you know that index. And again, if you just let them increment, then that's kind of handled automatically for you. And she's able to restore her wallet. You say, yep, Mom, I got you. Here's your seed words that we generated 6 months or 16 years ago. She can then repopulate that back into any other Bitcoin wallet. Hey presto, all of her funds show up. And despite her very lackadaisical approach to backups, you were able to handle all that for her. And you were able to handle that for her, in a way that didn't mean that you had to have like a pen and paper and, a piece of paper labeled Mom's Seed and then go and store that somewhere safe and secure. Like, it's all on Passport Prime. It's automatically backed up by your Magic Backups, so you don't have to have anything else additional to worry about. Prime just handles it all for you. Some other use cases is, well, I used the example of looking after Mom just then, but you could do the exact same process for yourself. For if you want to try out different mobile wallets, instead of just giving it to your mom, you can just populate it into a mobile application on your phone. The same application applies in that you can populate any of those child seeds into a Bitcoin wallet and not have to worry about the additional backup, because Prime, again, handles it all for you. Same goes for Nostr identities. If you're going to start using the Nostr network, then you can have Prime generate a new Nostr identity for you. You can import that and then not have to worry about creating a separate backup for you to, be a hedge against you losing your phone or having it wiped or stolen or something like that. And then the final one is storing your most sensitive passwords on the device instead of in a password manager that may or may not live on a malware infested computer or lives on a network drive or something like that. The Vault app, to wrap up, is your secure offline environment for the most crucial bits of your digital life. All right, on to the Files app, which is genuinely pretty simple to explain. Passport Prime has 50 gigabytes of internal storage. All of it is hardware encrypted and protected by the PIN. The Files app is basically how you put files into that storage, manage them, and get them back out again. We support all of the common file types: documents, images, videos, PDFs, text files. Basically, if it's on a flash drive today, it will go onto Passport Prime. The reason that this matters is that the 50 gigabytes of encrypted storage in the pocket gives you a private offline place to keep your most important files that you don't want or need sitting on a laptop, a phone, or even worse, Google Drive. It's hardware encrypted and it's only accessible if you know the device PIN, and it's never online on a network. We'll come back to backups in a minute because the story for files currently is different to everything else we've covered on Passport Prime so far. So we'll deep dive into that in just a second. Okay, so let me go back. Passport Prime has, the Files app on Passport Prime has three main areas of storage. The internal storage, basically all of the files stored on the internal drive of the device. That internal drive is not accessible to anything that you plug into Passport Prime or that you plug Passport Prime into. And I'll show you that in a second. The second part is the external drive, which basically is just a file browser for anything that you plug into Passport Prime. So let's say you've got a USB thumb drive that stores some files, and you plug that into Passport Prime. When you navigate to the external tab of the files, you can just browse what's on that USB drive. And again, you would just plug that in via USB-C into the bottom of the device. Again, we'll show you how to do that very, very shortly. And then the final part of the Passport Prime Files app, and the most important, is the airlock. This is the bit that's worth slowing down a little bit on, because it's the design choice that makes Prime safe to plug into even the most untrusted computers. Think of an actual airlock, let's say on a submarine or a clean room in a, somewhere that makes pharmaceutical things, that sort of thing. It's a small buffer zone where the inside and the outside are never connected to each other at the same time. On Prime, the airlock works in exactly the same way. When you plug Passport Prime into a laptop or a phone, the only part of Prime storage that ever shows up on that machine is the airlock. It's your safe zone. Your internal storage stays completely invisible. That includes all of the master key, the seeds, the codes, the keys. All of that is hidden completely behind the airlock door and is never accessible to any third-party computer or device, despite it being physically connected to it via a USB cable. The other side of the same rule is that when Passport Prime is plugged into a computer, you cannot move files into or out of the airlock from the Prime side. You would have to unplug it first so that nothing on your laptop can sneak the file into the secure internal area while you're connected. Full demo coming up, don't worry, I know this might be a little bit lost on people, but it's actually very simple in practice. So the trade-off is one extra step when you transfer files. You can move to airlock, plug it in, drag that file across, unplug and move to internal, or you can drop them straight into the internal from an external drive. So some fairly obvious use cases for the Files app, and a few of the common ones that people are doing with the Files app today. Obviously, replacing their existing flash drives. Most of them are not encrypted. Obviously, Passport Prime is, so it's a good step up in security. If you're the type of person that does carry a USB stick, encrypted or not, with passwords, recovery notes, PDFs, files, etc., then the Files app makes that redundant essentially, because you can have all of this in that one super simple, easy to use device with a nice, bright, big touchscreen on it. And then the second one, obviously, is storing the documents that you never want to be available on a server. So more important stuff like your last will and testament, your tax returns, your business contracts, ID scans, that sort of stuff that ideally you would never store on something like Dropbox or Google Drive. Passport Prime is the perfect candidate for keeping that sort of stuff offline and secure. And then the third one is kind of like a secure file transfer between machines that may or may not be in the same room. You can plug Passport Prime into your laptop, drop a file into the airlock, walk to a different machine, or fly if it's on the other side of the world, plug it in and get that file over there. No network, no cloud, no email attachment that lives forever on somebody else's mail server, just secure file transfer. All right, quick note on backups. So for the previous 4 weeks and the start of this call where I talked about the Vault app, everything is covered by your Magic Backups. Every seed, every key, every password, every label, index, color, settings, the whole lot, encrypted on the device, protected by the same Magic Backup system that we've spoken about previously, and automatically backed up in an encrypted fashion to the Foundation server if you have Magic Backups enabled. Files are where this is currently different. The files on the internal and the airlock storage are currently not part of Magic Backups. So the Files app can be viewed as your encrypted, completely offline storage that lives only on the device, full stop. So if your Passport Prime is lost or destroyed, the files on it will go with it. So the practical rule for anything that you put in the vault, you don't need to think about backups because Magic Backups handles it for you. But for anything that you put in the Files app, obviously it's secured in an encrypted fashion offline, but it's solely on Passport Prime. So you can, depending on your kind of thought process and what you need from the files, that you might be fine with that, and Prime is your master backup for your files, or you can keep an additional copy elsewhere, depending on whether you're okay with that trade-off and where you want to store that. We do have plans in the not too distant future to enable or expand the Magic Backup feature to cover storage. For those of you that purchased as part of the early access program, you will be grandfathered into that free of charge. And for those of you that may be watching this after that, where you didn't have, you chose not to purchase via the early access program, the pre-order program, then that will be a small cost to, optional of course, to have those files included as part of the Magic backups. Don't have any specific details on costings yet or storage amounts, but it will be competitive with the rest of the market. And I guess the main selling point here, other than it being low cost, is that it would be a single kind of encrypted file or encrypted blob of data that includes all of the other stuff that we've already talked about on Passport Prime as well. So stay tuned for that. Quick recap on the Magic backups. In fact, no, looking at the time, I'm going to skip that for now. So I've got plenty of time for the demo. If you're curious about the Magic backups, please go and check the previous weeks where we covered that off in great detail. So a quick look forward at what's next for these two apps, because as I said, they're not fully feature complete yet, and there is some important updates coming pretty soon. As I said, with the Vault app, importing existing Bitcoin seeds and Nostr keys is coming in the next firmware release. So you can bring your identities you already have with you onto Passport Prime, and the same goes for your Bitcoin seeds. Also another cool feature is the ability to apply any Vault Bitcoin seed that you have as a temporary wallet directly in the Bitcoin Wallet app on Passport Prime. So a child seed that you've generated or imported for, say, your mom's mobile wallet or your mom's hardware wallet can be loaded temporarily into the wallet app on Passport Prime to be used to sign transactions without it ever having to leave the device or be re-exported to any third-party wallet. This is another cool one that I'm very much looking forward to, is on-device password generation, so that you don't have to manually type in a long random string yourself, which is the current state of play at the time of recording this. So that will be, to be clear, deterministic in the same way that the Bitcoin seeds and the Nostr keys currently are. What will happen is that you'll just have another button when you add new item. Instead of having to type in the password, you can just press create new. And Passport Prime will do that for you in a deterministic way. So you'll get a secure password generated for you offline and stored offline as well. And then finally, you'll be able to export some of the Vault items to a file, which makes the family bailout story a little bit smoother, because you can hand over kind of a recovery file that contains your mom's seed for it if she's not able to, say, scan a QR code or physically see the seed words on your Passport Prime screen. Quickly on the files roadmap, the ability to open and preview common files directly on the screen, on the Passport Prime screen, is something that we're looking at. So think of it like previewing text files, which could be useful if you've got lots of similarly named files and you want to have a quick check of the contents of one before you move it, let's say, to the airlock. That would be useful to have, and something that we're looking at. And then just streamlining things like faster file movements, some optimizations there around how you would move and copy files, just to make things a little bit easier. And then how and when you're able to kind of select, or also if you want to move a bulk amount of files or folders, you can do that quicker than you currently can today. So stay tuned for to our forum and socials for announcements as to when those types of things do go live. Okay, right, that brings me to the demo portion, so bear with me for just a second, guys, while I get that set up. Okay, can you guys see my camera? Give us a thumbs up, please. Perfect, thank you. Okay, let me just grab my demo list. Okay, so I'm going to do the Vault application first. So I tap on the Vault app. I do already have a Bitcoin seed here that I've pre-generated, but just to show you how easy it is to generate a new one, let's go through that flow first. So I'm going to tap on New Item. I'm going to tap the drop down. And let's say this time I want a 24-word seed. It's going to ask me to give it a label. It's a free text field. You can type what you want in there, but generally I would advise you to kind of type in, the use case. So for this one, I'm just going to choose, there we go, it's focused, demo. And then the advanced options is what I mentioned earlier, where you can, if you're an advanced user, you can change the index. Because this is the first 24-word seed that I've generated on this specific device that you guys are looking at right now, it starts at index 0. But if I wanted to, I can go and increment that and change it to whatever I want. Again, best practice is to just start with what the device suggests for you and then press save. And there we go. New demo seed has been added to my Passport Prime Vault application. So now you've got these seeds, what can you do with them? All right, so what I'm going to demo now is, let's say I'm onboarding my mom and she wants to use Blue Wallet on her phone just to test out what this Bitcoin thing is and to see how it works. So I would come into here. I would look at the item details where I can change the color. I can edit the name and it will tell me the type of information it is. It's a 12-word seed and the index is 0. I'm just going to save that color change and there you go. You can see that replicated into the list. But if I go back in and tap view seed, I'm going to see a brief warning to say, obviously this is sensitive information. Be careful who you share it with, and then tap confirm. And the first thing I'm going to see is the 12 seed words, which I can obviously go and type into any other Bitcoin wallet that I want to, or I can view that as a, there we go, as a seed QR, which is another Bitcoin standard that's widely adopted. So what that would look like for my mom in this scenario is she would open up Blue Wallet and she would then, I've already got it imported, so let me just delete that to show you the full process. Okay, so she would tap on add wallet. And in the Blue Wallet case, you choose import wallet. And then Blue Wallet basically says paste those seed words or type them in, or you can scan or import a file. That opens up my camera. And what I can do, I'm just going to pick up both devices and I'm going to scan the QR code that Passport Prime is displaying. And as you can see, straight away, instantly, Blue Wallet has read that. It's ingesting it and it's importing it for use within this phone that you're looking at right now. There we go. I'm just going to tap on import. There we go. It's been successfully imported. And now my mom in this scenario has her own Bitcoin wallet on her phone. But crucially, over here, I've got her backed up. So if she then goes and loses this after populating, 10 Bitcoin into it, obviously not a great idea for a mobile wallet, but just to, as an example, and then she loses her seed words, I can just come back into here and be like, hey, mom, don't worry, I got you. There's your seed words. You haven't lost anything. Okay, and then you can also do the exact same thing, but for Nostr private keys. So the flow is identical. New item. This time I choose Nostr key. I can give the key a label. So I'm just going to choose Damus. Press done. And there we go. I have my new Nostr key derived deterministically onto the device. If I tap on it and then tap view key, I get that warning. I hit confirm. And then it shows me, first off, the public key. But what we need to import is the private key. And over on my phone again, I'm going to open up a Nostr client. Specifically in this scenario, I'm using Damus. And I'm going to choose sign in because I already have a private key, which you can see on Passport Prime. I tap the scan icon and then I just scan that QR code. It imports the Nostr private key. and I can log in. And there we go. I'm ready to explore the Nostr ecosystem. Once again, with the all-important private key backed up on Passport Prime and secured with my Magic backups as well. And just to quickly give you a quick sit rep of where we're currently at with the passwords. New item, password, give it a label. Let's just say hi. I can tag it to a specific account. So let's say this is going to be my Google password. And then I can come in here and type in my secure password. I can view it, tap done, and have it saved onto the device so that I can then go and retrieve it whenever I want, just like that. Now, obviously, I don't advise most people, especially beginners, to be creating their own insecure passwords. So this is more of an advanced feature right now, or an import feature for your existing passwords. But where this aspect of the Vault app becomes much more powerful is when Passport Prime is able to generate them automatically for you using good, strong entropy and save them in a deterministic fashion, just like the other two items, the Bitcoin seeds and the Nostr keys that I demonstrated earlier. And that will be coming in a very update coming very soon as well. If I very quickly, just like the 2FA app and the Keys app, if I want to get rid of a specific item, I go into the item details and I tap archive and it's removed from the list. I can, of course, view the archive and see my archived items where I can delete or I can restore it back to the list if I made a mistake. There it is, gone. Okay, right, files application. So as I mentioned, the Files app on Passport Prime has three main areas for storage. We have the internal storage, which is the encrypted flash drive internal to the device that is not accessible to any other device, even if it's plugged in physically to Passport. The next one, I'm just going to skip across, is external. So with external, let me just demonstrate that for you now really quick. We're going to plug in an SD card with an adapter, a USB-C adapter into the bottom of the device. And there you go, immediately in the external tab, I can see the file list. And if there were folders in here, you'd see the folders as well. And I can just browse which files are on there. And if I wanted to move one of those files into either the airlock or the internal storage of the device, I tap the three dots, I can choose select. And let's say I want to move this this README file. Once it's highlighted, tap the three dots and I can move or copy. So this time I want to move just a copy of it and I'm going to put that into, copy, and I'm going to put that into, let's put it into the airlock. So copy it there. If I go into the airlock, there is our README TXT file. So external is very simple. You just see whatever file system you've got plugged in to the bottom of the device. As soon as you've unplugged it, you can see that it can't load any files because there is no external drive connected to Passport Prime. Now onto the cool bit, the airlock. So just as a recap, this is kind of like the safe zone that is visible to connected computers and phones. In here, I've got two demo folders and that README file that I've just copied across. The same principle applies, that if I want to move one of these from the airlock into the the internal storage, I tap the three dots, I choose select the file that I want to move or copy, choose the three dots again, and this time I'm going to move, and I'm going to cycle through to the internal, and we're going to move it there. It's now gone from the airlock. And if I cycle back around to the internal storage, there is that README file. Well, I've now got two because there was already one there, of course. Another one with the airlock is when it's open, but not plugged into any external device, and you tap the three dots, you've got two settings here. where you can change the read-write permissions or availability of the airlock itself. Fairly self-explanatory, but just to allow me to kind of spell that out. You've got read and write. So that means that when you plug this, the Passport Prime into a computer, if read and write is active, then the connected device, in my example, it's going to be my Mac in a minute when I show you, will be able to obviously read the files, but it can also make changes to it. So it can add there as well, or delete files. So it's kind of like you can manage the files in the airlock from a third-party device. Or if it's in read-only mode, obviously they won't be able to make any changes, but you can of course copy files from the airlock into your connected device, your computer. So let's do a quick demonstration of that. I'm going to grab a USB cable. There we go. I hope this isn't going to kill my camera. Can you guys still see my camera? Just give me a quick thumbs up. Beautiful. Okay. I'm just reusing the same cable, that's all. All right, so we are now plugged into my Mac. Let me just come out of the Files app. All right, so we're now plugged in and the airlock shows that it's connected by USB. So I'm just going to change my screen share over to my file browser on my Mac. Just 1 second. Okay. So give me a thumbs up if you can see the Finder window on my Mac. Perfect. All right, so down the locations on the left-hand side, as you can see, there's only one thing that's visible to my computer. That is the airlock. I'm currently in read and write mode, so I can come into these folders, I can see all my sample files, I can rename them like that because I'm in read and write mode. I've given permission for this connected device to make changes to files within the airlock. Once again, if I rename and just add, there you go, I can make all the changes. Obviously, if I was to unplug it right now, then those changes will be reflected when I look at the files within the airlock on the device itself. Stating the obvious here, I know, but it's worth mentioning that. Obviously, because we've got write access enabled on Passport Prime, I can also add folders. So if I come into my desktop and I copy this MP3 file, come into the airlock, it allows me to paste and add a new file and it copies it over there. I know this is all simple stuff. I just want to give you a quick, very kind of simple demo of how to do things with Passport Prime and specifically with the airlock. All right, so let's now unplug. And I'm just gonna, there you go. So it's now not connected. There's that MP3 file that I've just copied across. And once again, if I then wanted to think, oh, this is, a super secure file, I want to get that out of the airlock because I now no longer want that to be visible to third-party computers or external devices. I can choose select, grab that file, and we're going to move that over to the internal storage. It's now gone from the airlock, and if I cycle around, there is our super secure MP3 file in the internal storage. And just to really drive home the point, if I plug back in now, go over to the airlock, and then show you, my Mac is not seeing it, just 1 second. There we go, now it's seeing it. I don't know if my screen share is still on. I don't think it is. It's not. Let me pull that back up. There we go. If I go back into the airlock, look, the Mac can no longer see that super secure MP3 file because I have moved it. All right, and then the final thing I want to show, just quickly gonna disconnect. And I'm gonna go back into the 3 dots within the airlock. And this time I'm gonna choose read-only mode. So now we're in read-only mode. External devices can no longer make changes. If we plug back in, And I've just realized why my Mac is not seeing it straight away. It's because I've not been safely ejecting it, which is bad practice. So please don't copy me there, guys. Okay, try that once more. There we go. Okay, right, back into the Files app. Oops, that's not the Files app. That one is. We're connected by USB, and I know my screen share is off, so I'm going to bring that back up. All right, we are back into the airlock. Remember, we're in read-only mode, so if I try to right-click on this test folder and make some changes, look, I don't have the rename option. If I highlight it and press delete, nothing's happening. Again, it's locked down. I cannot make any changes. The most I can do is kind of copy this folder and then come over here to my desktop and paste it in. So I can remove files, obviously, because I can see them, but I can't make any changes. And I think that brings me to the end of the demonstration. I'll leave my camera running just in case there's any questions that people want me to recap or demonstrate new things on. But yeah, that brings me to the end, guys. So please feel free to hop up to the question stand if anything that any questions or you have any unanswered demonstration aspects that you want me to go and recap on. We do have a couple of minutes left over, so please feel free to shout up or drop them into the chat if you do have any questions. I do see one off topic in the chat, but I will take it while we're waiting for anybody else to hop back up. And Amy, please do drop me a DM if somebody's on the question stand, because once again, I'm not seeing that as the presenter view. But Steve's asking a bit off topic, but I just watched your discussion with Seth, Naomi, and OpenState. Thank you for watching. Seth discussed PayJoin and mentioned it's only Cake Wallet and Bullet wallet that currently support it. Any plans to add it to Envoy? Yeah, I would love that. I'll be honest, we don't have any immediate plans kind of in the short-term roadmap to do that. We are focused on kind of shipping Prime related features right now, but I will be pushing for that later this year because we are kind of passionate about privacy at Foundation, if that's not already fairly obvious. So short answer is yes, we'd love to, but we're not planning it right at this moment. But thank you for your question. Any more questions popping up? I'm not hearing anybody on the microphone. Oh, okay. Great question, Steve. Thank you for popping that one in, and very timely as well, actually. So Steve asks, I've heard Zach mention the possibility of running tails from the internal storage on Passport Prime. Are there any developments on that? Are there any internal developments on it? No, not yet. We do have an internal ticket to track that, so it is kind of already on our planned list. And Amy did share actually a Nostr note from one of our customers. In fact, let me just bring that up for you. Bear with me 1 second, guys, because this is pretty cool and it is kind of applicable to Steve's question and what we've been talking about today. Just bear with me while I quickly try and find it and share my screen. Amy, if you've got the link, that would be super helpful. Yeah, Amy's getting me the link now. Perfect. I'm just going to switch my screen share over to my Nostr account so I can show you guys what this customer's been up to, because it's pretty cool. And just while we're bringing that up and I'm waiting for the link off Amy, we've got a question from Michael. Will the password function allow entering passwords into an app in some way, or is it simply a storage option? At first, it will simply be a derive and store function. However, one of the things that I'm very proud to be able to show you next week that I've been working on with the help of some AI is exactly that, where it works over a USB connection to enter passwords directly into websites for you. So that's really like the next level of it. So we will definitely be getting that added in some way, shape or form later in the year. However, I'm more than happy to hold my hands up and say I am not a developer. So this type of functionality needs to go through a very strict kind of interrogation by our actual engineering team. I'm merely just going back and forth with Claude or with Codex to kind of see what we can build with the developer SDK, which again I'll be talking about in great detail next week and showcasing that. But the short answer is yes, I've already got it working, but in a kind of developer way where it needs some serious kind of engineering chops to test that. But yes, Michael absolutely will be doing that, because again, for me, that's where the rubber really meets the road, and this becomes actually useful from a password management and usage perspective. Okay, I'm just going back to the note. Can you guys see that note where it's from a gent called Shadrach? I'm not sure which you can. Yeah, so Shadrach posted this only today actually, and he said that he's booted MX Linux off his Foundation Passport Prime airlock, logged into the Primal app, which is what I'm showcasing this on. It's a Nostr application with a remote signer to post this note. So that means that any random laptop can become your freedom terminal. So, Steve, to go back to your question of can you run Tails on this, then that's basically what Shadrach's done, albeit a different flavor of Linux. So it seems, having never done any research into it whatsoever up until now, that it may or may not already actually be possible, because Shadrach's already done it. And to be clear, Shadrach is not part of the team. He doesn't work for us in any way, shape, or form. We had no idea he was going to try this. He's just posted today to say that he was able to do it. So it seems as though with the existing architecture, it's already possible, but I won't want to commit from the Tails side until I've actually tried it myself. But very cool and very excited to actually see that. So yeah, the Tails use case is very interesting to me. Being able to use Passport Prime as kind of like a secure computer that fits in your pocket anywhere you go is very, very compelling. So yeah, I'm aligned there, Steve. So thank you for the question. Very, very timely. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, and I don't think there's anybody up on the mic stand. So what I'll do is I will close this out. Thank you all for attending once again. We'll get the email recap, sorry, the video recap emailed out to you as soon as we can, probably later this evening. If not, it will be tomorrow morning. And be sure to join us at the same time next week for the final prime time office hours, where, as I said, we're going to be talking about the developer SDK, what you can build with Passport Prime, and showcasing some of the cool stuff that I've been able to build in terms of proof of concepts, despite me not being an engineer and knowing how to write a single line of code on my own. Thank God for AI, but obviously, you should tread carefully there. But I'm excited to showcase that with you as well. So thank you all for joining us, guys. This has been a very fun one. Great questions, and we'll see you all at the same time next week for week number 3.